What made this NASCAR Cup Series race at Texas Motor Speedway so fascinating was that the biggest story was not always the driver at the very front, but the one quietly building toward the perfect moment. This was not a race that followed a simple pattern. It kept changing with every stage, every caution, and every restart, forcing teams and drivers to adjust constantly. At one moment, control seemed secure. A few laps later, that control was gone. What fans witnessed was not just another stop on the schedule, but a race that turned into a test of patience, survival, and nerve. From the opening laps, Texas looked like the kind of track where nobody could feel comfortable for long. Different drivers showed speed early, and the race quickly became about much more than raw pace. It was just as much about staying out of trouble and being in the right position when the afternoon began to tighten. Christopher Bell looked like one of the strongest cars in the field, but his race ended far earlier than expected after getting caught in an incident triggered when Todd Gilliland spun ahead. Bell slammed the outside wall, and in one moment, one of the fastest contenders was gone. That crash immediately changed the tone of the race and reminded everyone how harsh Texas can be when momentum turns against you. There were other names making noise throughout the afternoon. Carson Osavar, who started from the pole, showed genuine speed. Corey Heim led for a significant stretch and looked like a real factor thanks to strategy and track position. Denny Hamlin stayed exactly where dangerous veterans always seem to live in races like this. Close enough to challenge, calm enough not to waste a car, and experienced enough to know that being there at the end matters more than leading too soon. But while attention kept shifting from one front runner to another, Chase Elliott was quietly putting together the kind of race that wins at difficult tracks. He was not trying to force the issue, and he did not need to dominate every single moment. Instead, he and his team kept stacking strong decisions, clean execution, and controlled aggression. As the race moved deeper into its rhythm, strategy and pit execution began to separate the disciplined teams from the desperate ones. That was where Elliott's day truly started to come alive. His crew delivered some of its best work, and with each cycle, Elliott looked more complete. He was fast, but more importantly, he was balanced. He stayed out of trouble, protected track position, and capitalized when others made mistakes or lost momentum. Eventually, that consistency turned into control, and he led a race-high 87 laps. It did not feel accidental or lucky. It felt earned. Texas, however, never lets a race stay calm for long. Cautions, incidents, and constant reshuffling kept the pressure high. Every contender knew that even a great run could vanish in seconds. That is what gave the race its tension. It was not enough to have the quickest car. You had to survive the track, the traffic, the restarts, and your own decisions. If Elliott was a driver steadily building toward the win, then Denny Hamlin was the one keeping the pressure alive from start to finish. He never drifted far from the conversation. He stayed close, collected points, managed a changing flow of the race, and looked more dangerous as the laps wound down. There was something familiar about the way he handled the day. He did not need to own the spotlight every lap, because he understood that races like this are often decided in the final moments, not the early ones. Kyle Larson, on the other hand, became one of the race's most painful storylines. Entering the weekend, he carried the usual weight of expectation, because whenever speed and winning potential are mentioned, his name is never far away. But in Stage 2, his race took a brutal turn. Larson lost control in Turn 2 and slammed hard into the outside wall, ending any real chance he had to contend. It was a kind of mistake that feels especially cruel, because drivers like Larson always seem capable of taking over if given one long, clean run. At Texas, he never got that chance. His promising day disappeared in an instant, leaving behind damage, frustration, and questions about what might have been. Then came the moment that transformed a strong race into a memorable one. A late caution wiped away the comfort Elliott had built and set up a final restart with only a few laps remaining. That changed everything. Suddenly, the work of an entire afternoon was reduced to one last burst of execution under maximum pressure. In that kind of moment, speed still matters, but instinct matters more. The leader has to launch cleanly, pick the right lane, and defend immediately, because one weak move can erase everything. Hamlin lined up ready to attack, and for a brief moment, it looked as though the finish could go either way. This was the opportunity he had been waiting for all day. But the key difference came in the details. Elliott got the launch he needed, and support from Alex Bowman helped him clear the danger early. Once Elliott came off turn 2 with enough space, the fight changed. That tiny window was all he needed. From there, he shut the door, controlled the restart, and never gave the race back. Elliott crossed the line first. Hamlin came home second after a hard, disciplined day that still ended just short of victory. Bowman finished third, followed by Tyler Reddick and Chris Buescher in the top 5. It was a result shaped by speed, yes, but even more by pressure management, timing, and clean execution when the race became most dangerous. This race said something important about the Cup Series right now. It showed that the fight at the top is tightening and that the margin between celebration and heartbreak is incredibly thin. Elliott's win was more than a trophy. It was proof that his team can control a race, absorb late race chaos, and still finish the job when everything is on the line. Hamlin's second-place result was strong, but it will still hurt because he was close enough to imagine a completely different ending. Larson's crash was another reminder that even the fastest drivers are only one mistake away from losing everything. That is why Texas mattered. It did not just produce a winner. It exposed the pressure points of the season. It showed which teams can stay composed, which drivers can survive the chaos, and how quickly the balance of a race can change. One driver built a statement win through patience and execution. One driver chased it all the way to the finish and still left unsatisfied. One driver saw a promising afternoon vanish in the wall. And the rest of the field got another reminder that this season will not be won on reputation alone. It will be won by the drivers and teams who can handle pressure, adapt fast in the chaos around them, and deliver when the race shrinks to its final, unforgiving moments.